U.S. labor market. That is not game-changing job creation. And I'm going to go into that more in a moment. But one thing that you do need to know, these glowing jobs reports of 600,000 jobs created by shale production, when you go in and you parse those numbers out, well, first of all, those numbers are based on economic models. Now, anybody who's taken Economics 101 knows that an economic model is only as good as its inputs. You can reverse engineer any economic model to make it come out to say whatever you want it to say, just by changing your inputs. And we also know that, because we went in and did some work, and others have gone in and done some work, that these numbers include jobs such as strippers and prostitutes. Now, arguably, that's job creation, right? But it's not the sort of job creation that you and I think of when we hear these glowing numbers of jobs created by the oil and gas industry. And these PUDs, remember I stated that the SEC allowed this expanded definition of developed reserves, proved undeveloped reserves is what that stands for. That's what I'm talking about in these PUDs. We also now know, and I think I can make and others can make a very, very tight argument now, that had these companies really complied with the SEC, and I've got some great comments in letters going back to these companies from the SEC about PUDs, but had they really complied with this rule, they would have found themselves in collateral default. So that's a little bit of a talking. And exportation is obviously being pursued for the price differential to aid balance sheets. The problem that we have with this is that you and I would have with this living in regions where shale is extracted is that once you get locked into these long-term contracts to deliver gas to China or Asia or India or wherever it's going to go, then these companies are going to have to engage in this frenzy of drilling, and because otherwise they'll be defaulting on those contracts. So there's a problem. Okay, this is kind of a hard slide to read, but I'm going to try and help you see. This line here is standardized state average. This is for median household income in 4 counties, the counties in 4 different shale plays, the Marcellus, Haynesville, Fayetteville, and Eagle Ford, during 2006 to 2010. Let me go step back just a moment. I will be the last to tell you that there is, I will be the first to tell you that there is economic benefit in shale coastal counties, no doubt about it. You do get some economic benefit. The billion-dollar question is, how long does it last? And as best I can tell, it's about 4 years. You get about 4 years of a punch in your economy and it's over. So I went back in and I wanted to look at the 4 counties. I wanted to take the industry's version, or the industry's estimation of what the 4 counties were. These are the very best counties where the very best wells are. So presumably, the people who live in these counties, according, if we believe all the rhetoric that the industry gives us about how your income's going to increase and your local businesses are going to thrive, etc., then you need to look at some of these things to see. So I wanted to go and see. During this time period, these were the plays that would have been in that initial 4 to 5 years of good economic growth. So I wanted to be fair. I wanted to give them their very best shot. And these are the 4 counties. As you can see, virtually every one of the people who live in these 4 counties are underperforming their state averages. So in other words, these counties are not on par with what other counties within their own states are doing. This one, Bossier City Parish, this outlier right here, Bossier City, or Bossier Parish, which is where Bossier City is. Bossier City is home to about 1 million casinos. That's their number 1. And by the way, they make about $1.4 billion in taxes per annum off their casinos, way more than they make off all their oil and gas extraction service taxes. So they would be better off having casinos than oil and gas. Nevertheless, Bossier City, that's the reason it's one of the outliers, is that it has a lot of casinos. It's also home to the largest military base in the South. And I went in because I wanted to see, well, does oil and gas even fall in the top 5 industries for Bossier Parish? And it does not. So you can see that median household income is underperforming the rest of the counties in the various states. Okay, here's retail sales. So this gives you a good indication of what local businesses are getting from shale gas production. As you can see, some of these counties are significantly underperforming the rest of their states as far as local business activity. You do have a few that are outperforming. Again, Bossier Parish, Conway County, that's a big, there's a lot more going on in Conway County than just drilling. But this kind of gives you an indication. So retail sales really haven't been, it's not that great. These are wages, because we hear that they bring in a lot of high-paying jobs. I don't know. I don't know what the wage rate is for a prostitute at the moment, but you know, as you can see, the wages really aren't that high. Now this is based on national, because the Bureau, these figures, by the way, come from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the Department of Labor, and they do not do wages on a state-by-state basis. They just do it for the national average. But as you can see, wages are pretty significantly underperforming. So all those high-paying jobs, it is what it is. Okay, another interesting thing that's happening is you're seeing a lack of confidence within the industry, I think, now. In October 2011, Norse Energy put all its Marcellus leases up for sale and didn't get any takers. No one wanted the Marcellus leases. Norse Energy ended up declaring bankruptcy, going Chapter 11 in December of 2012 because they couldn't get rid of these leases. Anschutz let all their Marcellus leases just expire. Presumably they couldn't find buyers either. I'm guessing at that. I don't know that for a fact, but that's a lot of money to just go poof, it's gone. PDC Energy couldn't get a joint venture partner for its Utica assets in spite of their acreage being classified as some of the best in the Utica. Kind of interesting. Other oil and gas players won't go in on it, maybe. And OneUp, believe it or not, that's the way you pronounce that. OneUp failed to secure partners for a pipeline venture out of the Bakken. Now, I find this particularly interesting because pipelines are cash cows. And you have a large expenditure on the front end, but as long as you have a hydrocarbon that's going to produce, or a field that's going to produce for a long period of time, once you recoup those initial expenditures, you've got this cash cow in your hand for 30, 40 years. I mean, they're fantastic income generators. They can't get partners to build a pipeline out of the Bakken. I wrote a post on this on Energy Policy Forum. It was picked up by a lot of industry publications and reposted. And I kind of started to stir because these companies are putting a spin on it and saying, well, we're going to ship it by rail. Now, shipping by rail costs them 3 times as much as to ship by pipeline. So why do you want to take on that cost? Well, they say it's because we can ship it wherever we want it to go. A pipeline just goes to one destination. I say rubbish. They saw what I saw in the production data. They see that the average Bakken well is going to be at stripper well status. It's done by year 6. So they know they don't have a long-lived hydrocarbon field on their hands, and they're not going to put up the monies to put in a pipeline up front. Okay, so someone was talking about externalities of shale. I've actually begun running some numbers on this. Road damages versus revenues from shale gas extraction going to the state. In the state of Texas, road damages are estimated by our TxDOT to be $4 billion just from shale gas drilling in the Barnett and Eagle Ford and the small part of the Haynesville that spills over into Texas. Most of the Haynesville is in Louisiana. $4 billion in road damages. The state took $3.6 billion from all oil and gas, not just shale, all oil and gas, onshore and offshore. So we've got a little bit of a shortfall there. Estimated road damage in Arkansas for drilling, and I misspelled Arkansas. $450 million. Severance tax revenue cumulatively since 2009 to the state of Arkansas has only been $182 million. So you've got to come up with another $250 million somewhere just to repair your roads from what the industry has done. Pennsylvania has been very cagey indeed. They came out in 2010 and announced that road damage from gas drilling was about $265 million. About a month ago, though, they lumped everything together now, and they said Pennsylvania roads, just to maintain existing assets, not to do any improvements, but just to maintain existing assets, they need $3.5 billion. They didn't directly attribute this to oil and gas, and indeed, you can't attribute all of this road damage to oil and gas because oil and gas only occurs in parts of Pennsylvania. Nevertheless, what's interesting about this is that when you have road damage, one of the peripheral effects, or one of the primary effects of road damage, is flooding and flooding problems. And when Hurricane Sandy hit, the counties that were by far and away the hardest hit as far as flooding and so forth were the drilling counties: Wyoming, Lycoming, Bradford, Susquehanna. It was all the heavily drilled counties in Pennsylvania. And the impact fee revenue that Pennsylvania took in last year amounted to $204 million. They've got a significant problem on their hands. Health impact costs. If you go in, and these are just, I'm sorry I didn't include this on the slide, I should have done. These are just for NOx, nitrogen oxides, and VOCs, volatile organic compounds, which are two